Disproportionately, there are more entrepreneurs that are dyslexic than the percentage of folks that are dyslexic among the population. So they say there's roughly 10% of the population is dyslexic, give or take, and roughly 30%, I think, or more of entrepreneurs are dyslexic.
Perseverance. This show highlights a man who discovered that learning disabilities can sometimes be a tremendous gift, if and when allowed. Chris Bright, president of Zpizza, built his business from a 4-unit local chain in Southern California to over 100 stores and a unique restaurant brand. Interestingly enough for Chris, dyslexia allowed him to naturally think out of the box. Hi, I'm James McPartland, and like my friends often do, feel free to call me Mac. I'm proud to introduce you to Chris Bright, the president of Zpizza. In this story, really a story about adversity, Chris will share a gift, that gift of dyslexia that instead of adversity became for him like a university. What could be perceived as a weakness by most was actually a strength, and all that was subject to the power of interpretation, influenced greatly by his parents. Chris Bright amplifies the fact that this gift, if interpreted properly or reinterpreted, actually turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to him. Now please allow this story and the story of Chris and his journey to serve you. An opportunity for you to recognize your own gifts, to look at your life, to look at what you have and recognize that you yourself, like Chris, have the power to make a difference, to put a dent in the universe.
Of the choices made by humanity, to share one's gifts may well be the most surprising route to happiness and success. Gifts given and gifts received, each requiring a unique perspective to an opening where we find the opportunity of wonder. We bring you now on a journey with those who have discovered how to unlock the power of their unopened gifts.
Now, as Chris's story unfolds, we learn a couple things. One, that in a learning situation, a learning disability can actually put a child in harm's way. You know, the need to have a champion or somebody by your side is so important, or as Chris would say, you could crash and burn. Now, Chris's father had dyslexia, but what was interesting about Chris's upbringing, when he was told he was special and unique, he didn't view that as a setback. He had a support squad in his mother and father that told him, yes, he was unique and yes, he was special, but he viewed that as an advantage and not a disadvantage, fundamentally making all the difference in Chris's life.
When you're in a learning environment, you have a learning disability, you're in harm's way. You know, and so having a parent or someone who's your champion to help you through those embarrassing moments is absolutely critical, because that's a time when you will crash and burn and lose all confidence, or you'll just pick yourself up and keep working it. But Dad was dyslexic, so he walked a mile in my shoes in a different environment. But the mom was especially nurturing because she's mom, and that's the way my mom always was. It was always family first. And so growing up with that safety net around me was very beneficial.
You know, as Chris's story illustrates so vividly, you know, life is an interpretation. It's never what happens to you or a label that's placed on you, in his case, dyslexic. It's the meaning that you give it. In Chris's case, his parents gave it an empowering meaning, gave him a story, conditioned him to see his life, yes, as special. But in Chris's case, the special meant opportunity. It didn't mean setback, it didn't mean difficulty. It meant he was given something unique with which to put a dent in the universe. And as you learn in this show, Chris certainly does. You know, what Chris reinforces to us is the power and the importance of interpretation, the labels and the meanings that we give to things. You know, Chris was told, look, you're going to have to think outside of the box. But for Chris, there was no box. He couldn't see a box. He had adversity as a young man, but it became the norm. He didn't see it as a difficulty. He saw it as an opportunity. And consequently, as his life has unfolded, particularly in the professional ranks, and I'm sure he's dealt with it as a father and as a husband, but for what would normally set other people back, and they'd call it adversity, they'd call it difficulty, for Chris, that's just the way it is. As a matter of fact, he doesn't see the difficulties others see. He just sees that as normal, giving him an amazing advantage to move life forward.
You know, they talk about dyslexic thinking outside the box because we really don't understand where the box is, how to work in the box. But equally, if not more important, is the fact that you develop this kind of stick-to-itiveness. You kind of let things just roll off your back, and moments of challenge or to some degree failure, you just pick yourself up and keep moving on. So I think that is definitely a big part of what anybody with a learning disability has going for them, in that when they get into their adulthood, they've already had those challenges, and it hasn't been a primrose path where life's been great. You've been an A student, you've achieved all that you can achieve as a young person, and now you're going to start running into some adversity. So having dealt with the adversity at a young age, I think makes you more impervious to it.
Of the many gifts that Chris Bright possesses, one is the gift of expectation. In that regard, I would call it positive expectation. Chris has the ability to see results that support his intentions without needing evidence to know that it's on its way. Now, for you in your life, it's the same. It's the distinction between knowing what you don't want, what you do want, but most importantly, setting an expectation. Because that expectation may mean it's on its way, or it's something that you want to have happen, but you don't need to have it validated in the near term to know that you're taking the right steps. Practice this. Be really clear on what you're going after. Picture with your mind's eye of what it looks like when it arrives. Think of the words, the pictures, the images, and the language that you use to support it, and let people know it's here. It's amazing what will happen when you act as if it's happened, because those things will certainly become apparent to you to take advantage of. Just like Chris Bright.
Being defeated is often a temporary condition. Giving up is what makes it permanent.
Mastery is a very interesting concept. While we always could be improving, we never quite arrive. That said, I believe Chris has mastered the art of not sweating the small stuff. So what really is important in life? How do you get the results you're looking for when you deduce between what's important, what's not important, and what's the small stuff? For many of us, the simple act of reading or writing on a board or presenting in front of other people, well, that might be difficult. It's something that most of us are equipped to do. But when you're dyslexic, it is extremely difficult to read some of the documents that are important for business, as well as get up and present and write on a board in front of your colleagues. So one of the things Chris said, this really taught me, was the power of people and surrounding yourself with the right people in life, not just because you're dyslexic, but because of the game of life. I also learned from Chris, something that has served me time and time again, is, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, you go with other people.
I think the fact that, when you're in this education environment and you're sitting there trying to make sense of something, information's flying over your head, you're not assimilating everything. And I think over time, instead of grasping at straws, you try to assimilate what's important and hopefully you can get there. And so again, having invested my 10,000 plus hours in the restaurant and the franchise world, so you've got all this information coming at you, and so now you're at a point where you feel like, okay, the information's flying, but now I'm just going to identify. I don't need to understand. I don't need to focus on everything. I need to focus on what's important. And so I think that's been a key to my moving forward in this industry, is just being able to identify what truly is important. And part of that probably does come from the fact that I'm dyslexic. So here you are, all used to the fact that there's going to be a lot of information flowing through that you're not going to get. I don't dwell on the small stuff. I'm not good at dwelling on the small stuff. So I've had the good fortune of being around some really good people that really take up the slack and inspire me and are better than me in a lot of ways. And so for me, it's always been finding the smarter people and working with them and having more of a team approach, a flat organization structure, so that we're all contributing. Everyone's voice counts, and so that's really helped to give me a sense of freedom and a sense of confidence within the team. So that as other things, there are other things out there beyond the Zpizza. It's freed me up to really pursue at this point in time other opportunities beyond Zpizza that the team that I've been so fortunate to work with can be part of. So I feel like that's something that I need to do to benefit them, is to go find those other additional opportunities where they can start to flourish as leaders themselves.
What you're hearing a lot in the words, the pictures, and images that come across from Chris is the power of leverage, and how less is actually more. Perhaps because he was not able to, it turned into be a strength for him. He was able to deduce, or is able to deduce, the 2 or 3 most important things that are going on, whether it be in a document, in a conversation, in a business plan. He looks for leverage. What are the fundamental 2 or 3 things that are going to make a difference? He also looks at what he's not good at, or perhaps is not well gifted at, and surrounds himself with the people that can fill in the spaces that are required in order for him and his team to move forward, to take him to that intended destination based on those 2 or 3 leverage items. Now, how you can apply this in your own life is consider the following question. What are you best in the world at? What's your unique gift? What's your talent? What's your strength? What might have been sort of a difficulty, a setback, some label that perhaps you have used in a disempowering way? What could be used in that regard to serve you? Where is it that you're not strong? Who can you surround yourself with? What are the 2 or 3 things that are sort of the leverage items for you to get where you want to go with a team you want to take you there? And how do you keep it simple? Perhaps because he had to, Chris had to keep things simple. And what that gave him was also the strength and the power of focus. Those 2 or 3 things, with everything else going on, it gave him leverage, gave him time efficiency, gave him focus, gave him detail, and gave him the powerful results you see today.
First off, I'm left-handed and I'm dyslexic. And so when you're told to go up on the board and write, and that is just, even today, tell me to have me get up on a board, on a whiteboard and jot down strategy or thoughts or what have you. It's still something that I am not good at, and so that's something I try to avoid at all costs. As a student, public speaking, terrible. I hated public speaking. I was terrible at it. I mean, I was the guy who would rather have been in the coffin than be giving the eulogy.
A self-important man knows everything. A wise one, everybody.
So something that really comes screaming through as I listen to Chris and as I've gotten to know him through the course of time is the power of focus. What you focus on expands. So Chris didn't focus on what he couldn't do. He didn't focus on the fact that he couldn't get in front of a whiteboard and present. He didn't focus on the fact that he would have a difficult time reading. He didn't focus on the fact that he didn't like to do speaking. He focused on what his strengths were and what he was best in the world at and how he could surround himself with people that could fill the gaps. So I've heard it said, and I've seen it happen time and time again, and Chris's story amplifies it. Where your thoughts go, energy flows. So what about your life? What about your dreams, goals, desires? As we film this today, this happens to be January, right? New Year's resolution time. This is the year we're going to set the world on fire. As Chris was overcoming his obstacles, and as we overcome our obstacles, I've learned that what's wrong in life is always available, but so is what's right. What you want to consider now is, what are you going after? Who are the people that are going to help you get there? What are the words, pictures, and images in your mind? Where are your thoughts taking you? That's the key action, because that will drive the new habits and behaviors to drive the results and propel you towards your goals. Think about your focus. It'll make a fundamental difference in the outcomes of your life. What Chris has stimulated a lot of thought around was the power of a peer group. Who you're around is who you become. And with that group, the people that you associate with, transparency and authenticity is everything. Also, to be unafraid to share your passion. And one of the best definitions I've ever heard of passion is being willing to suffer most for what you truly love. Chris also has an amazing gift of understanding his audience, and that audience could be whether it's his client, his employees, his colleagues, or even his family. He knows the audience he's playing to, if you will. Chris seeks the truth, and that's one of the greatest gifts you can give to another person. And he's also built an amazing support squad, those folks that he can go to when times are difficult to help propel him to continue to move forward. Let's learn more about that.
First off, you've got to look within yourself is what it is you're seeking to do. Are you passionate about it? Because if you're passionate about what it is you're seeking to do, then you'll be curious and you'll want to continue to strive to gain as much insight, and as much knowledge, and as much capability as you can. But then it really comes down to building the right team around yourself. That's not necessarily starting off hiring a bunch of people, but associating yourself with the right people, mentors, just peers, folks that can help you think through what it is you're about to take on, and to help hone your strategy and make you the best you can be. And we in the E-Village, for example, spending time with you in the E-Village in Chapman, you see that some of these young people, they have completely different approaches. Some will come in brash and full of all of the answers, when in fact they don't have all the answers. And some will be basically an open book and open up their kimono and just ask you to pick apart their strategy. And I think that tends to be, from my perspective, the right approach is, don't be so defensive. Don't be the one who feels like you have all the answers. It's an interesting dichotomy in the sense that we, as an entrepreneur, especially as an entrepreneur that has to go out and raise money, you have to be the one with all the answers. You have to be able to defend, what your vision is and what your idea is, what your concept is. You can't look vulnerable. You can't look weak in that environment. But then you have to be able to turn that off, I think, and really interact with peers and mentors and open up to them and let them help you to hone your thoughts and strategy and your business model to make it better and to hopefully make it successful. So I think you have to really look at your audience. You have to pursue multiple audiences and understand who your audiences are at any given time, and you definitely need to have the comfort of a group of people that will help, that will be hopefully brutal with you in terms of where you are and what you're doing, because last thing you want to do is walk out on that ledge and then find out that, boy, that strategy sucked. That idea had no merit. This is going nowhere. I just burned how many hours or how many months or how many years of time because I was pig-headed. And mind you, there were plenty of success stories where you were just dogged about your idea. You were told by so many people that this is a stupid idea, this is a stupid concept, and a lot of those people became successful. But I would imagine that there are plenty of folks out there that had a stupid idea and pursued it all the way into the ground and didn't realize how bad of an idea it was until they finally woke up one morning with no money in their pocket and no opportunity, and 10 years had gotten behind them. There is a huge opportunity to be able to hone your strategy and thoughts and ideas by associating yourself with a group of people that can become your comfort zone, if you will.
Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships.
What really comes searing through this entire discussion with Chris is the word passion. One of the best definitions I've ever heard of passion is a willingness to suffer for what you love most. And it's not as if Chris is suffering, it's just you tend to push past things that might slow you down otherwise if it wasn't something that you really were passionate about. Chris is also curious, and that is a powerful distinction. There is a difference between a learning mentality and a knowledge mentality. There are many that believe I've got to have all the answers or I have to know everything, and Chris has demonstrated time and time again the gift of having this learning mentality, this curiosity about what it takes to raise your game. And he has people around him that he's open to learn from, which is an amazing gift in and of itself. Whether those are the people that he hires or the people that he associates with, he's always looking to raise his game. In turn, he gives that gift to other people by virtue of who he is as a person. We have blind spots. The biggest part of what goes on in our life is what we don't know. And Chris is very open and demonstrates it, and I learn from him. Those blind spots can blindside you unless you're open to learn new things. Confidence is really important. He talked about that as a guy who's raising money or out there trying to bring in franchisers. And same token, you don't want to have all the answers because people want to contribute. So he has this confidence curiosity model that serves him really well. And he surrounds himself with people constantly, and that continues to come out in this discussion with him, as those people will help him raise his game by tapping his potential. So what does all this mean for you, right? So what I think it means for you is consider, what is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you're willing to suffer for, to endure, to push past things that might otherwise slow you down? And are you open to learning? That's the key. You don't have to have all the answers. The guy who had all the answers got nailed to a cross, and it's not really clear if he had all the answers. And do you surround yourself with people who are going to really, really stimulate you to grow? I've heard it said, and perhaps you have in some sort of similar vernacular, is you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So as you look at the people in your world, you have to ask yourself, how are they influencing you? What's becoming contagious by virtue of how you spend time with them? What's rubbing off? And in turn, how are you rubbing off on them? It's passion, it's people, it's focus, and it's that squad you have around you to help you raise your game to unlock your potential. That's how you put a dent in the universe. As it comes to learning, I think I can simplify what I get from Chris. Don't be a follower, be a student. And no matter what the event is or the person that shows up in your life, whatever meaning you apply to it is going to give you the course of action that you take. One of the great questions to ask is, what am I to learn from this experience or from this person that I can use to serve me going forward? And this is the power of interpretation. We thought about it, and also the power of curiosity. Chris has a great ability to ask thought-provoking questions, open-ended questions that stimulate conversations such that we can reach inside of the potential bank and find out what the potential is of an organization, of a person, of a concept, and of a business plan. 10,000 hours. Now that seems like a long time. Chris is going to speak about this, and I was really curious about it. Now, having read some things about it, and I really come to understand it from this perspective. When we see a great piece of art or an amazing stage performance, or perhaps we listen to a band or a musician who's just powerful, and we look at that individual and we tend to compare ourselves or compare others to them at their best, or that piece of art at their best. What we do not tend to see is what happens that led that person to that particular brilliant performance or outcome. Thousands and thousands of hours of pounding on one's craft to do what they have been gifted to do. So while many says it comes naturally, yeah, naturally after you work really hard to develop it.
I'm a student. I'm a student within the franchise business. I'm a student within the restaurant world. So I'm constantly learning. I think having that curiosity, just like anybody who is going to do a good job at something, you have to have that curiosity in order to excel or to be good at something. If I wasn't curious about, if I didn't have continuous curiosity about the restaurant world and why something worked, why something doesn't work, with the restaurants and the franchise world, I probably wouldn't be here or shouldn't be here. And so, you look at the outliers, the 10,000 hour theory, that resonates very well to me. The idea that, once you hit 10,000 hours, you can achieve some form of mastery. And so, I feel like in terms of confidence, I've put my 10,000 hours plus into the restaurant and the franchise world, and I'm busy trying to, to hone those skills and to become better and to ultimately develop more predictability in the outcomes that we're seeking within this business, so that those skills can be translated or brought into another business that my team can be part of within the restaurant and franchise world.
One of the great things to recognize from Chris's life lessons, which he shares with us, is, you already know what you know. What you don't know is the largest opportunity for all of us, right? Like I said, in the pursuit of mastery, you never arrive. And Chris's pursuit of education or knowledge or wisdom in all areas of life, particularly his business, is a place where he has a constant thirst for knowledge. Now, his learning comes from many places. I'm aware of the people he associates with, the courses that he's taken, the books that he reads. But one of the greatest practices Chris has, and how I think he learns the most, is sort of this management by walking around concept, where he's out in the field with his people, with his customers, observing, looking at competition, looking at other businesses, poking around to see what he can learn, so that the courses and the books and the people he talks to, when the rubber meets the road, sort of have that contrast of, is this really how it is when it's out there in practical application? So what does it mean for you, right? We hear this great story and I can take an action on this. If you come back to ask yourself, what is it you're going after, right? What is that passion? What's that goal? What's that end game? What's that result? If you looked at the gap of knowledge, which we all have, what's the area or areas you say, wow, if I really fine-tune this space, if I acquired this knowledge, if I leveraged this, if I found resources to help me in this area, boy, it could really accelerate my quest or my journey or the passionate pursuit of this goal or end game I have, whether that's business or family or whatever it may be. And also when you look at what it is about that knowledge that you acquire, like it is with Chris, when the rubber meets the road, power of knowledge is only potential power unless you go out and employ it. What you've got to do is use that power, learn from that experience. The continue learning is what's working, what's not working, modify the course, give it an empowering meaning, and move forward. From Chris Bright, we learn these valuable lessons. Let's take advantage of it. I believe if you were to ask Chris what one of the special things he enjoys most about his life, I believe he would tell you it's when someone asks him a question about life and business or seeks his advice, particularly when that's a young person. Now that's a transaction that Chris takes very, very seriously. And what's interesting is you can't give something away unless you own it, but you don't get to keep it unless you give it away. Chris Bright has a servant's heart. And one of the things that really strikes curiosity inside of Chris is to understand a young person, or for that matter, any person's why. What is it that motivates them to do what they want to do, to seek the knowledge they're looking for, and to ask that advice to move their life forward? Let's find out how Chris approaches that with young people and with the people in his organization, something we can all learn from.
It's great when younger people ask you for advice, and you think, you're assuming that I'm going to waste this person's time is valuable, they don't want to stop and talk to me, they don't want to interact with me, they're just going to bark at me and, hey, go away, get off my leg, kid, stop pestering me. So, which as I know now, as that person is the exact opposite. I mean, we are, as we age, we want to give back, and we're again curious about what's going on with the younger generations, and especially someone in my business where it is the consumer and especially the team member, the frontline employee for our business is young. They're a millennial, and it's helpful for me to understand that the mindset of that generation and what drives them, what motivates them, what have you. So I'm ever curious about what's going on in the younger generations, and I'm always willing to invest time to better understand it.
One of the things I think we can learn from Chris Bright is that it's a sign of strength to ask for help. And also, as I have indicated earlier, to know your audience. Don't believe that your way or your methodology or your knowledge is something that really applies to another individual or particular age group. And while it may, it's very important to understand how your message translates to a particular audience. How do you communicate that in a way that's meaningful, that's accepted from the person who is seeking advice or perhaps needs some advice and is not aware they do? Now, how does this all apply to your own life, right? As you've heard me say, who you're around is who you become. But often, unless we push ourselves, force ourselves, drive ourselves to expand our circle, we won't necessarily bump into the people that are going to expand us. Who are you asking for advice, for feedback, for support? When's the last time you picked up the phone and said, hey, I'd like to take you to lunch and ask you a couple of questions? Listen, the answer is always going to be no unless you ask. My experience has been, and it is just amplified in the illustrative story of Chris Bright, is it's a sign of strength to ask for help. Successful people will spend the time with you if it appears, and how will they know until they spend the time with you, but as you come across authentic and sincere with a strong desire and knowledge to learn. That's a payback for somebody who's already successful. Go ahead and ask. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Chris did it, and look how far it's taken him. A good question I have as I have gotten to know Chris, is it possible to be ambitiously humble or ambitiously satisfied? Chris has a great gift of humility. Now, he has a desire to reach his potential, and there are great accolades and stories about him, but Chris says you never arrive, right? You might hear him describe it, and I think we will in this next piece, that he hit a single where other companies or other restaurants or other organizations hit home runs. And it's not that he's not satisfied or successful or pleased with what's happened. It's recognition of the fact that good is the enemy of great. And in life, you're either growing or dying. Nothing stays the same. And what Chris has demonstrated, a very unique ability, is to have this level of a presence about him and this appreciation for where he's arrived, but a sense that there's more inside of him that he's to do with the gifts he's been given to help the people in his organization self-actualize and go on to do great things in their life. Therefore, to continue to give advice to those that want to find out how to play the game of life and to do the things that he's been put on this earth to do. I am inspired by Chris all the time. Let's watch.
And so here I am with a almost 100-unit chain, and that to me is I didn't hit a home run doing that. I basically hit a single. So I look at the counterpart, one of the brands that we represented early on, Five Guys Burgers and Fries. And I always make this comparison. Here we started off about the same time as that brand. That brand is about 1,000 units now. We're almost 100. That's mediocrity to me. So here, I think we could do better. And so there's always a comparison. There's always someone who has done a heck of a lot better than I have, than we have. And so I look at the future opportunity to do better and to continue to grow the business with the team around us. And so I don't see that we're a raving success, if you will. I see that we've done okay. But we've stumbled here and there, but we're getting better. I'm getting better, and so I don't see that. Maybe there are folks that are just coming up in the business and think, "Wow, you're about 100 units. What a great achievement." I just don't see it that way. I see that we've had success, we've had some failure, but we haven't hit it out of the park. And I'm always trying to figure out what levers, we all talk about the levers in business, how, especially when you have a unit model like a restaurant or a retail location, what levers can you develop that are going to make success predictable. So when we go open up the next 20, 25 locations, we can predictably say those locations will all do well because we've chosen the right real estate. We've got the right franchisee on board. We've trained them the correct way. And we've got the right marketing muscle behind the brand and behind them to let them thrive and continue to build sales week after week, year after year. So there's, I look at things. I guess everything's relative.
People who are unable to motivate themselves must be content with mediocrity, no matter how impressive their other talents.
From this entire segment, and from this particular clip we just watched, the word potential just magnifies in my mind. Chris is a man with amazing potential, but so are you. When I think about potential, there's a distinction in our life from playing not to lose to playing to win. And I heard Chris talk about, well, I was at 100 and this other company's at 1,000. It doesn't mean he was playing not to lose, but it has him question, am I tapping my full potential? Are my people tapping their full potential? And are we playing to win? Only he, over time, will have the answer to that question, but that question is thought-provoking, and we talked earlier about the power of questions. I also think it's important to recognize as you get in life what you tolerate. So as you look around your life and you look around your associations and the areas of your business, if there are things going on that perhaps you like, maybe there's a tolerance there on great things, but more often than not, there are things that you don't like. If we tolerate them, they're likely to stay right where they are. And Chris talked about expectations, and I referenced that earlier, is his ability and your ability to set an expectation, to see something coming forward without having to have near-term expectations or, should I say, examples or evidence of it coming to pass. It's conviction and passion in what you're looking to have unfold in your life, whereby which the words, pictures, and images you use in your mind, you use in your everyday demeanor, will illustrate to you what you expect to happen, and you step into that. It's not so much fake it till you make it, as much as is believe it before you see it, right? And Chris also talked about leverage and the 2 or 3 things that would make a fundamental difference. He called it levers, right? So if you look at your own life and what are you best in the world at? What are you uniquely gifted at? That if you spent time polishing that diamond, what could it do in your life if you didn't have fear or a disempowering story or a belief or a meaning or a label that was holding you back? We all have those things. To reassociate that the way we see Chris has done with dyslexia has opened up enormous opportunities for him in the same way they can open up for us. I remember a long time ago when Chris talked about, getting around competitors and other people and trying to understand what you're best in the world at. If you're best in the world at something and you work at it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or 10,000 hours, if that is what your intention and focus is, it's hard to copy and it's hard to replicate. As I mentioned, I was in Japan at the time, some now 15 years ago, when the Japanese came out to the automobile industry and caught the Americans for sure, and the German automobile manufacturers flat-footed. Nobody expected that the Japanese would come in and have such a powerful impact on the automobile business. Now this was Toyota and Nissan and Lexus and Infiniti. And I remember touring these factories doing business in Japan. And as I was touring these factories, there were these waves of people coming through from competitors taking classes at the Japanese car companies. And I remember saying to the folks that were giving us the tour, how in the world can you open your business, your kimonos, if you will, to your competition, to show them what you're doing? This is the secret sauce. You have to keep them out of there. That was my mentality, right? Those were my beliefs. And they said to me, Max-san, which I really appreciated, it takes us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to do what we do, and we're still striving to do it better than we've ever done it, and we still don't have it figured out. Nobody can come in here over the course of a couple of hours, figure out the formula and take it back and replicate it. We're happy to share because the questions that these people ask make us think, how can we get even better? And as I say, it's probably more important to know those people that you oppose or your enemies than your friends. So it works really well for us. So what you learn from this is understand what you're going after, right? What is your true potential? What is your unique gift? What are you best in the world at? That if you focused your 10,000 hours on those things, if you looked at what you really wanted to have happen in your life without having to have near-term examples of it coming forward, you trusted the people around you and you went for it. And from time to time, you took a breath, you appreciate what you had, but then you recognize there's so much more for me to accomplish. Not because I'm not happy, it's because I have potential. And that potential will unlock the greatness in other people. That's me using my genius. Chris Bright is a genius. And I hope you've gotten a lot from this segment because I have. And just spending time with him is a guy that helps me raise my game, and I hope he's raised yours today. Like we endeavor to do with each segment of An Open Gift, we look to impart a lesson by virtue of the amazing lessons that have been gleaned from the folks that are kind enough to give us the gift of time on our program. I hope we've given you a gift today that will serve you well, a lesson that you can apply to your life. As it comes to Chris, I could attempt to synthesize a couple things that come shining through for me. That's the power of interpretation. It's not events and it's not people, it's the labels and the meanings that we give to those things that have us take specific actions that lead to results. We all have the ability to reformat those interpretations and those meanings in a way that will serve us and those around us. Further, I learned from Chris, it's the power of passion, to go after something with your heart and soul, that you know what you want, you know why you want it, you know who can help you, you know when you want to get there. The least important thing is how. Certainly I've learned if you know the how and the dream is perhaps not big enough, not bold enough, not something that really authentically reaches inside and touches your true potential. And we all have enormous reservoirs of potential. Chris has something that we can all learn from and something that I see in him every time I spend time with him. And as I worked on this program today, is he has the power of expectation. To see something in the mind's eye before he's ever had any evidence that it's going to come to pass. That certainty, that conviction, that curiosity to make sure he stays on course. And his ability to surround himself with the people that are going to continue to lift him, to raise his game, to tap his potential, and to do what all of us, I say, aspire to do with our lives is to make an impact, to be a genius. The definition of genius is often attributed to somebody in the field of sciences, and we see Nobel Prizes, and we see somebody in mathematics, and they say that individual's a genius. Well, one can be a genius operating a camera, in front of a camera, operating a restaurant as a public speaker, being a trash collector. that somebody spends something as sort of a pursue it like a Picasso, going after something with their heart and soul that they love and being willing to commit and spend the time it takes to truly develop that strength. That's passion. That's genius. We hope in this program, through Chris Bright and the other programs that you see, you look inside and see your gift. The one or two things that would make a fundamental difference to you unlocking that gift in your life, to make a difference in the lives of other people so that they can unlock their genius and their gift and do what they're supposed to do, so that collectively we put a dent in the universe. If we've got one of you today, then it's mission accomplished. I hope we have many more. Further, I hope you come back to the next program, because it's our continued attempt to help you do something unique with your life that perhaps had you not seen something from one of the kind folks who come in this program to spark you, you might not have gotten there. There again, we've done our work. Thanks for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. Chris Bright, I owe you one, my friend. Amazing. Thank you.